coupled with that, in our quality of living here, I mean, we talk about terrorism as a great danger to this country, but the quality of life is also a danger to people. And I think that we've got to examine all of those aspects. And one area, too, is the quality of education. Now, we have an education president.
Yes, we do. I drove down, I guess it's Constitution Avenue, and Independence Avenue, excuse me, and I passed the Department of Education. And they've got this huge banner at the top, leavenochildbehind.com, and the front doors, they've adorned them to look like little red schoolhouses. So instead of the usual government entrance waste revolving door, they now have this very clever symbolism of Leave No Child Behind. The problem is the money wasn't put in the bill. The president got the testing that he wanted to determine how well students were doing. He got the accountability he wanted, which was that you could transfer to another public school if your school was underperforming, or you could get resources for tutoring and the like if your school was underperforming. But what he didn't do was put in all the money that was promised to enable us to reduce class size and to modernize schools and to do those things. So in fact, there will be children left behind simply because there's not enough money put into this program. One of the things that we were concerned about was that if you test, what you will find is that poor communities tend to have poor performing schools. Poor people tend to perform less well in school. So if you did not adjust for or correct for those problems, those problems would remain. Schools don't exist in an abstract or in a vacuum. If you don't have a good property tax base, you generally don't have a good school. You need resources from someplace, if not property taxes, in order to fund your schools to pay for good teachers. There's tremendous competition for good teachers now. Wealthier communities get better teachers. Better teachers produce better results.
The tax base is on real property in most cases.
Exactly.
And if you have a higher quality of homes or what have you, therefore you'll have more money to spend on education.
Absolutely. If you have a large commercial tax base, of course, that really helps. I've got one of the wealthiest communities in America, primarily because it has a huge tax base of high-tech companies that support its education system. And that really is important. So we've got some work to do in the education front to guarantee that kids are really not left behind. We've got a lot of work to do on modernizing schools. Amazing in this day and age with schools without air conditioning. Now, no self-respecting businessman would operate in an office that did not have air conditioning, but yet we ask our teachers to teach in that environment, and we ask our children, who we care so much about, or who we say we care so much about, to learn an environment without air conditioning, without modern technology and computers and things like this. And so even not including building schools, just modernizing schools for the 21st century, we need a lot more federal resources.
Well, what you have to do is put the education budget into the Defense Department, and you get solve all the problems.
You're absolutely right. Defense is going to do very well under Homeland Security. And I'm just concerned that we spend the money wisely. We're still spending a lot on missile systems that don't bear any relationship to Homeland Security or the nature of the threat we have right now.
On the question of education, how do you feel about charter schools?
I like charter schools. I think we need some laboratories for innovation and invention and creativity, and charter schools give you that. I like charter schools. I don't like vouchers. And so I think public schools...
Could you explain the voucher system?
Well, the voucher system is, I think, very dangerous because it would take money out of the public school budget, out of the allocation that they get from the federal government, and allow individual students to take that money and go out and enroll in private school. I have nothing against private schools. We have some very fine private schools, but taking money out of already poor communities' public school systems to pay for vouchers doesn't seem to make sense. The other question is that in many areas, such as our own Washington metropolitan area, the amount of the voucher, about $2,000, would not be enough to pay for a private school education. Most of our private schools start at about $3,000 and up. Many of the better ones are much more than $3,000. So I'm not sure the vouchers are adequate, but most importantly, the fact that the vouchers will take money out of the public school system is something that I find very troubling. But charter schools, public charter schools, is a great way to provide innovation and to experiment and see whether or not we can improve the public school system.
Do you think that in the future you're going to be able to scare up the money that's necessary for these improvements in education that you advocate?
Well, it's always a question of priorities with the federal budget, as you know. The money is there, it's how we spend it. We've passed a major tax cut for basically the very wealthy. 52% of the tax cut will go to the wealthiest 2% of Americans. Well, to me that doesn't make sense, giving more money to people who are already well off. If you took that money, you could spread it over several different priorities, like education or prescription drugs or health care, that will enable you to do more. What's being suggested is that our deficits are caused by the war on terrorism. It's not. The deficits are caused by the tax cut, and that's what makes it so difficult to fund our other priorities.
Well, what seems strange is the fact that the Republicans have always been noted for the fact that they want to balance the budget and cut federal expenditures. Now the situation seems to be reversed. The Democrats seem to be in that position.
Absolutely. We're the party of fiscal responsibility now. But we point out to the public that, again, only 10% of the deficit is caused by the war on terrorism. Most of the deficit is caused by big tax cuts for very wealthy people. I reiterate that point because it's driving our deficits, which is hurting our economy. Whenever you start running long-term, these big deficits, you hurt long-term interest rates. And that means houses are more expensive, cars and other items, big-ticket items, become much more expensive. So it's a hidden tax on the little guy who has to buy these things with less resources, while the big guy is getting the benefit of the tax cuts that's causing the problem in a kind of cyclical way.
How do you look for the economy now? What do you forecast?
I think we're going to come back, but I think we're going to come back slowly. I think, first of all, the corporate responsibility bill we just passed will help stabilize the markets, stock market. I think that will help draw capital in, which will help with investment, and it will begin the process of growing. I don't know if the Federal Reserve Board is going to cut interest rates again. I think it'd probably be a good idea to help further stimulate. But I think we are going to move in a positive direction, but I think it will be slowly.
I want to thank you very much, Congressman, for taking time out. I know you have a busy schedule. Even though Congress is supposedly not in session, it means that you have more work to do back in your own home district.
Absolutely. So a reporter once said it was a recess. Oh, no, we don't go on vacation. They said it was vacation. I said, no, it's a recess. We don't have votes here. We have lots of work back home.
And it's a home work session now.
That's right, home work session. That's right.
Well, Congressman, again, I want to thank you very much for appearing with us here on Ask Congress. I hope you'll use this forum at any time.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed it.
Talk about some of the issues that are affecting your constituents.
Thank you.
And now, until next week at this same time, Lester Wolff saying so long from Washington.